issues concerning our health, and for that matter, our mental health. And we thank God for giving us life to come together once again to have this discussion done. So in few minutes, so today, as we've been doing, we are starting a new series. So in this series, we are going to look at mood disorders. We are going to look at mood disorders. And it may take us about 4 weeks to complete this very series. So I will appeal to all of us to take notes that it is Sundays at 6 p.m. that we meet to have these interactions. And today we are starting with mood disorders, as already mentioned. This is a Ghana Growth Project with an initiative of the Springboard Roadshow with support from the Mastercard Foundation and then the Ghana Psychological Association. My name is Jones Kwesi Tabo, and I will be your facilitator for this evening's program or this evening's discussion. Before we start with the main interactions, I would like to share some 2 Bible verses which will serve as a foundation of our discussion. So I'm sharing from James chapter 1, reading from 2 to 4. It says that count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. I'll take it once again. Count it all joy, my brothers and my sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. And we know in life or in this life, almost every now and then, a lot of trials do come our way. Some that we don't even know how we are going to come out of it. We don't even know which way to go. Sometimes it may become so difficult that some becomes allegations that we don't even know how to defend ourselves. There are a lot of things that you are thinking. You face a lot of trials. James 1, 2 to 4 is saying that count all those things as joy. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. All these trials that you may be facing is just producing, it just make you steadfast. And steadfastness have its full effect, and that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. So it builds upon your faith. It enables you to become that person that is no longer shakeable. So for the trials, the Bible didn't promise us of a life without trials. The trials may come, but he said he is always with us. And if you should read Revelation chapter 21, verse 4, it says, he will wipe away every tears from their eyes. And for this matter, whatever tears that you may be shedding, whatever sorrow you may be going through, whatever the issues that are making you very moody, this message is for you. That God says he's going to wipe out away all your tears, and there shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. So be rest assured that all that you are going through is just a matter of time, and at the appropriate time, God will show forth his glory, and all this shall come to pass. Today we are talking about mood disorders. Talking about mood disorders. And we should know that mood is normal. Everybody has a mood. So far as you have emotions, so far as you have feelings, so far as you have flesh and blood, you are human, you definitely have emotions, which is a normal part of life. So is mood. So everybody has a mood. They are saying that mood is a long-lasting emotional state. It can either be a happy mood, a sad mood, an anxious mood, whichever it is. It is normal to feel any of these things. And that is how a person views the world or behaves. That is your mood. Just as every other person has mood, sometimes it can become disordered, or sometimes it can become problematic, or maybe let me say that deviates from how it is expected to be. That leads us to what we call the mood disorder. So when your mood is disordered, then you're talking about a mood disorder over here, and that is persistent and excessive experience of emotions. So for us to talk about a mood disorder, one cardinal thing we should be looking at is how persistent that particular mood is before we are saying that it has become disordered. How persistent has it been or has it become? How severe is it? So we look at the severity, the persistency, or the consistency of that emotion, which is deviating away from the normal or from how we know the person to be. There we can be talking about a mood disorder. So let us understand that mood is normal. Everybody experiences one form of mood at a time. However, when it's becoming out of the normal that we know, then we are talking about a mood disorder. So, just as mentioned, a mood disorder is a mental health condition that primarily affects your emotional state. So it also established here that a mood disorder is a mental health condition. And that's why we try to distinguish between mood and mood disorder. You experiencing a particular mood doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem. It is not a mental health. If I'm sad because something happened, it's normal for me to be sad. So I can't say that I have a mental illness. I did because I am sad. If I am excited because maybe of some good news or something good that has happened to me, we can't say that is a disorder. It is normal. But when it is becoming a difficulty, when it is going out of the range that is expected and it's affecting your mental health, there a disorder is coming in. So as we say, a mood disorder is a mental health condition that primarily affects your emotional state. It's a disorder in which you experience long periods of extreme happiness, extreme sadness, or both. And I think an emphasis is on the extremes. That's why when it's becoming too much, when it is overly done, persistently. So when it lasts over some duration, and at times too, it can be the both. It can be the two coexisting or co-occurring. Certain mood disorders involve other persistent emotions such as anger and irritability. So sometimes these emotions move along with that kind of emotion that you're talking about. So anger particularly and irritability may be persistent, or it moves across some of these things that we are exploring. So let's take note that it's normal for your mood to change. So it is normal for me to move from happiness to sadness. It is normal for me to move from sadness to happiness. I would like to appeal that
Bye bye.
if
Yeah.
we are not contributing to the conversation, let us mute our microphone so that it doesn't interfere with the discussions. Thank you very much. So I can move from a happy mood to a sad mood, which is normal or which is okay. At the same time, I can move from a sad mood to a happy mood, and it is very okay. So you are saying that it is normal for your mood to change depending on the situation, depending on what is currently happening around you. However, a mood disorder diagnosis symptoms must be present for several weeks or longer, which you mentioned that persistency is key when you are talking about these things. Mood disorders can cause changes in your behavior and can affect your ability to perform routine activities. So then your normal daily activities or your normal daily functioning can become affected when you are experiencing any form of a mood disorder. If you are a student, it can affect your academic work or your school performance. If you are working at an organization, your outputs will be affected or can be affected when there is the presence of a mood disorder. And according to the DSM-5 has categorized mood disorders into these groupings, which the first one here we have what we call the depression and its subtypes. So you have the depressive disorders or depressive disorders. And under depressive disorders, there are various issues in there. We also have bipolar disorder and its subtypes. So when you go to bipolar disorder, there are subtypes in bipolar disorder. Then we have the premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And then we have the disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. These are, so if you look into the DSM-4, you may not see some of these ones like the premenstrual dysphoric disorder and then the disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. You may not see them. So these are the reviews that were done, but in each of them have their own issues. So over the period, as I said, we'll be using 4 weeks to complete this series. Each week, we are going to tackle each of the categories. So today, we'll be starting with the depression and its subtypes. Next week, we'll look at bipolar disorder and its subtypes, and it follows like that till we do the disruptive mood dysregulation. So today, we are looking at the depressive disorders and their subtypes. So mainly that is what generally we do term as depression. So the question now is, what then is depression? But before I get there, I intend to take some views from audience or from my listeners, what they know about depression before we go into the notes. So just in 3 minutes, and maybe from 3 people, if they can share their thoughts or their views about what depression is, maybe symptoms or any other thing they may want to say around it for us to continue. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm opening the floor for brief interactions that we continue. So please, if you are ready to talk to us, kindly unmute, raise your hand. I'll call you and you talk. Or you can equally put it in a chat box, but I prefer us to talk. Yeah, so who want to share with us? If you want to speak, kindly unmute and speak to us, please. What do you know about depression? Can you share any knowledge with us? That is the question. Oh, do I have some followers, please? Hello.
Yes.
Can I say something small?
Mr. Kofi Annan, please say something. I'll be waiting for you to speak.
All right, so thank you so much. So for me, I think for my own view, I think depression is when you feel like you don't feel like doing anything. I think that's when you feel like you want to stay in bed, stay at one place, be alone. Don't feel like talking, don't feel like going about your normal daily activities. Like for instance, going out to talk with somebody, or even going to take your bath, brush your teeth, all those normal activities. I think that's happening to you when you are depressed. So I think that's what I know about depression.
Very well, very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Kofi Annan. Yes, please. Kofi Annan has started for us. So who next will want to share his or her view with us? What do you know about depression? If they say depression, what is it? Okay, I guess I'll have to mention some names. Miss, Mr. Benjamin Blay, can you share your thoughts with us when we talk about depression? If you can hear me, kindly unmute and speak. Okay, so Monica sent in the chat box, she says, persistent sadness for 2 weeks and above that affects the daily activities of the individual. All right, thank you, Monica, for your contribution. Very well, Benjamin. All right, I think we'll have to continue because Madam June, do you want to speak to us?
Yes, I just wanted to say something small.
Okay.
Like my sister said, when sadness persists for longer than usual, then we are moving to anxiety. Then gradually you move into depression, where it becomes like your normal routine. It's like it's something that has lingered on for a very long time before it gets there. So
Okay.
it's not just a one day affair. Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
want to say.
Thank you very much. Norbert, your microphone is on. You want to speak to us? Okay, so Cook's iPhone in the chat box says depression is when an individual is not able to carry out daily activities that he or she uses to do due to extreme sadness. Very well. Thank you, Cook's iPhone. Sure. All right. Thank you. And I think this serves as a good point for us to continue our discussion. So, just as you've all said, they are all correct. So I'm just putting all the pieces together. So depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness, which cut across all the contributions that came, and loss of interest. So it's also called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. So what you say depression, so mainly clinically we say major depressive disorder or clinical depression. And it affects how you feel, think, and behave, and can lead to variety of emotional and physical problems, which some of you also shared as well. So you may have trouble doing normal day-to-day activities, and sometimes you may feel as if life isn't worth living. You think like you feel so fed up in life that because of how down the spirit has become, you think life is even not worth living. This condition can cause difficulty in how you think about situations, even your memory, your eating abilities. Sometimes it can even affect your sleep. When you go to bed and the sleep is not coming, or it makes you to sleep more than necessary. It makes you to sleep more than necessary. So for a person to receive a diagnosis of clinical depression, the DSM is making us understand that. So for those who are joining us new, if I should mention DSM, I mean the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So this is a guide to clinicians in diagnosing, especially when it comes to the psychological health. We use the DSM as one of the supporting guides to diagnose psychological conditions. And the current is the DSM-5. So we are saying that according to the DSM-5, for us to say that this person is suffering depression, the symptom which you'll be looking at, those symptoms should last for at least 2 weeks. The symptoms should last for at least 2 weeks for us to be able to say that, yeah, this is depression. If I'm sad for a day, that shouldn't mean that I'm depressed. I'm sad. That is a mood. So I'm just sad. Sometimes a time may come, you just don't feel like interacting with some people. It can be okay. Sometimes maybe because you are stressed out or something like that. We can't say at that time you are depressed. You may be sad. You just don't have the energy to do that. But if this continues for 2 weeks, then we should be heading towards a clinical assessment or a clinical diagnosis for depression. So what should we be looking out for? Not to be diagnosed of depression, a person must experience at least 5 of the following symptoms that we are going to be looking at. At least 5 of the following symptoms during the same 2 weeks period, with at least one of the symptoms being either a depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. So all the things we're mentioning from here, at least 5 of those things should be present, and then it should be persistent for at least 2 weeks. And definitely we should also have a depressed mood and or loss of sadness or pleasure in there. So what are some of those symptoms? One is the depressed mood. That's feeling sad. So the individual is feeling sad or should be feeling sad, feeling so empty, feeling hopeless, sometimes even helpless, or tearful most of the day. Nearly almost every now and then, the person is tearful. The person has lost hope. The person is just sad. Rather, the mood is just down. So if this is persistent for 2 weeks, it should be giving us a signal that something possibly is not well. Then we have loss of interest or pleasure. Loss of interest or pleasure, where there is that diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost everything around a person. Things that a person mostly enjoy or usually enjoy doing, this time around, they just don't have interest in them again. So like for instance, today being Sunday, maybe this person is someone who will never miss church for anything. But I get within the past 2 weeks, this person doesn't have interest in anything, church, socialization, going to work. Maybe they like watching football, and currently football matches are ongoing and this person doesn't have any interest in those things again. Maybe they love watching movies, but they just don't have interest in those things again. Persistently, or maybe they like singing or doing some particular activity or going to some particular functions. But all of a sudden, rather this person has just lost interest in doing that. Or even you yourself, you realize that you just don't have interest in doing all these things that you used to do this time around. And then talking about almost an everyday thing, not just a day. So the persistency is actually something that is important here. Almost every day or most of the day. Sleep disturbances, where you are not able to, as mentioned, you are not able to get the sleep that you want. Either you are sleeping too much or you don't get a sleep at all. So insomnia, that is not able to get sleep. You go to bed by the time you realize it is morning. Sometimes if you get some hours of sleep, you wake up, you feel so tired. And then the opposite is the hypersomnia, where this person may be sleeping too much than expected of this person. Significant weight loss. Sometimes when it happens like this, because the person no longer have interest, their spirits, their mood seems to be down persistently, they don't even have interest in eating. So because they are not eating well, they may end up losing weight. And the opposite is also true, where some people would rather have an increased appetite, which make them to rather gain weight. So it makes them to rather gain weight, and others, they rather lose weight. Then you have psychomotor agitations or retardations, where this individual is observed to be so restless or being slowed down in movement and speech. So it is not always that the person is going to be at the aggressive side, but they can just be restless, like even in thoughts, restless in thoughts as they are there, like they sit and it's like, no, it just stand. They are just so worried and their mind is wandering around. And sometimes it even affects their movement. So you realize that either their movement becomes so slow, and then their speech, how they talk, also sometimes is affected. And that's not all. Fatigue or loss of energy. So feeling fatigued or having loss of energy nearly every day. So you wake up, you haven't done anything much, but you feel so tired. It's as if you've been working the whole day. As if you've been working the whole day without rest. Meanwhile, maybe you didn't do anything. And sometimes you just lost energy in doing the things that you should be doing. You know that I'm supposed to do this thing, but the energy just to start is just not coming. The energy to start is just not coming. Difficulty concentrating, feeling of worthlessness or guilt. Excessive or inappropriate guilt or feeling of worthlessness. So the individual feels that they are nobody, they are not important, they are not wanted. Those thoughts, and then sometimes feeling guilty of even things that they didn't do, crimes, things that they shouldn't be guilty about, they tend to be guilty or feeling guilty about those things. Hopelessness, and that feeling as though they do not belong. That's a feeling of worthlessness or guilt. And difficulty concentrating, diminished ability to think or concentrate, or indecisiveness nearly almost every day. Recurrent thought of death. So this person feels that life is no longer worth living. Looking at the things going through their mind, they feel life is no longer worth living. So if I should die, it's better. Because this person is feeling so worthless. They feel helpless. They feel hopeless. They feel there's no support. Looking at this world with billions of people, it seems nobody is there. So you be seeing yourself in a big open space, as if you're alone, no help from anywhere. So those thoughts of death can be coming, either the ideations, and the ideations can sometimes lead to an attempt or planning to. And we are saying that these symptoms must cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. So these symptoms that you've mentioned, and we are saying that at least 5 of them should be present, and they should be affecting the person's interaction socially, their occupation, that is their work, and other important areas of their life. These feelings or this way of feeling is interfering with how things should go for them. So as we said, when it comes to the depression, it has a lot of subtypes. So we are looking at, let's look at few of them. One is the what they call the postpartum depression or peripartum depression. So you realize that sometimes a mother will finish giving birth and they just lost interest in the child. They don't feel happy, they are moody, and all the symptoms that you mentioned may be present. So this type of depression occurs during pregnancy. That's a peripartum. Or at the end of pregnancy, that is postpartum after they deliver. So the peri is during the pregnancy. Sometimes during pregnancy, some of these emotional disturbances do come. And but as you are saying, you're talking about the persistency. So this woman is experiencing most of the depressive symptoms whilst pregnancy is there. So the distinction here is that prior to the pregnancy, the person has been fine. But once pregnancy is there, and during assessment, once the person checked yes to pregnancy, and that depressive symptoms is happening within the pregnancy framework, there we should be looking at a postpartum depression. If it is happening soon after delivery, then we should be looking at, if it is happening during the pregnancy, you should be talking about peripartum. When it happened after delivery, you're talking about postpartum. So women experience hormonal, physical, emotional, financial and social changes after having birth. And talking about the hormonal changes, yes, when there's pregnancy, there's definitely going to be hormones to be changing to set or to prepare the body or the womb for the child. So that is where you see the physical changes and all those stuff happening in the lady. At the same time, even the changes in eating habit and all those stuffs, their mood, because of the hormonal changes. And sometimes financial issues. Social changes. Now, even how they are dressing, they will definitely change when they are pregnant. So some of these social change and then the thought of even having a new baby and all these issues coming around. And most importantly, if this pregnancy is not even expected and there are issues surrounding it a lot, maybe the marriage itself is problematic. Sometimes these things are prone to happen. And these changes can cause symptoms of postpartum depression. So some symptoms include feeling sad, hopeless, or even numb. So as a new mother, losing interest in your hobbies, or families, or your friends, extreme irritability or anger, difficulty bonding with the baby. Sometimes the infanticide where the mother sometimes maybe want to go and then dump their child somewhere. They just don't feel the child. And sometimes they maybe feel like they are failure. So that thought of I'm a failure as a mother, because they wish they can care for the child, but the bonding is just not coming. So the thought is like, I'm a failure, I'm not a good mother. These thoughts can be coming and be affecting the woman. So that is with the postpartum depression and then the peripartum depression. Then we have what we call the persistent depressive disorder. Persistent depressive disorder. This is a chronic form of depression that must last for at least 2 years. These symptoms may occasionally lessen in severity during the time. It's less severe than major depression, but it's ongoing. So when with the persistent depressive disorder, the individual for all the days of the year, they are depressed. So as the symptoms sometimes will not be as bad as that of major depression, but they are depressed. So continuously for at least 2 years, we know if you are in diagnosis this time around to become a persistent depressive disorder either than major depression, because so if somebody has been diagnosed of depression and continuously 2 years and they are still in that state, you are right to say that this person has a persistent depressive disorder. So if you take the direct information from the DSM, says that depressed mood for most of the day, for more days than not, as indicated by either subjective account or observation by others, for at least 2 years. In children, mood can be irritable and duration must be at least 1 year. So that's for children. And you know that children also go through depression. Subsequent slide, we talk more about that. So it's not only adults that go through depression, but children equally go through depression. And if a child, according to the DSM, the child should be presenting with these symptoms for at least 1 year, the child qualifies to be considered into this category of persistent depressive disorder. And these things must be present. While depressed for two or more of the following should be present: poor appetite or overeating, sleep difficulties, low energy or fatigue, low self-esteem, poor concentration or difficulty making decisions, feelings of hopelessness. So that, and it's also known as dysthymia. Okay, so dysthymia is so it's milder but long-lasting form of depression. It comes with a lot of stress, guilt, anxiousness, hopelessness, fatigue, low self-esteem, as mentioned earlier. Then we have what we call the seasonal affective disorder. Seasonal affective disorder. It's also one of the depressive disorders. So this type of depression occurs during certain seasons of the year. So the person will be fine until a particular period of the year. That's where the person's symptoms will come up. And after that period pass, they'll become okay. Next year, around that same time, the symptoms will come back again. And then mostly around wet season, like the rainy season, where the weather is cold like that. But it can also occur in other seasons as well, and then some specific festive periods. So if that particular, maybe around their birthday, Christmas, or some particular occasion when its anniversary year is around, it's about to come, then these feelings will start coming. So it becomes a seasonal affective issue. And talking about some causes of seasonal affective disorder, sometimes talking about reduced sunlight, as we are saying that mostly around the wet seasons where the sun is not up like that, the weather seems to be down throughout that cold moment. It can be a trigger or a source to why this person will start having these symptoms. So the lack of sunlight in the wet seasons will disrupt the body's internal processes, impacting mood and sleep.
Oh,
And low
there will be
serotonin levels too. And we know sunlight
Robert,
boosts.
subsequent days in the memory.
Please, if you're not speaking to us, kindly mute your microphone. Thank you. Lower serotonin levels. Sunlight
Jones,
boosts.
you're a host, so you can mute them, please.
And it will definitely make, I have to go back to go and look through the chat. That's the problem. So it's how I must be going back and forth. Sunlight boosts serotonin, a neurotransmitter that regulates mood. Less sunlight reduces serotonin, leading to depression and then seasonal affective symptoms. So these people may have these issues because of this neurotransmitter reduction, because if the individual has it in low quantity, it makes them suffer when the sun or when the rays are not actually applied in the wet season. Increase melatonin production. Darker days increase melatonin, a sleep regulation hormone, causing fatigue and disrupting the body's systems. Lower vitamin D levels as well. So basically, they're talking about when the sun is not there, these people experience some of these things. So that's about seasonal affective disorder. And then some of the symptoms include tiredness. So when that period comes, they feel so tired, low energy, poor concentration, bad mood, lack of motivation to do what they want to do, needing more sleep. They enjoy to sleep more. Some may tend to be abusing substances. Because of diet issues, they may tend to either gain weight or lose weight. They prefer to be isolated than to socialize. They lost interest in things they used to do. And based on that, they are not able to do what is expected of them. So they fall behind their responsibilities. They're not able to do what is expected of them. So this is seasonal affective disorder. Then we have what we call the psychotic depression. So the psychotic depression, that is a combination of depression and psychosis. Psychotic depression is a severe form of major depression that includes psychotic features. Psychotic features such as hallucinations. So when we talk about hallucination, it involves false sensual perceptions. So it can include the auditory, that is, the individual will be hearing voices talking to him or her where no other person can hear, but they can hear those voices or someone talking to them. Either it can sometimes be mentioning or calling out their names or giving them some specific information. Sometimes it can be seeing things that it's only them who can see these things. That's the visual form of hallucination. Sometimes they feel things on their skin, which is a tactile hallucination. Then even sometimes they smell things that it's only them who can smell. So some scents, and it's like they are only people. So they are in the room with you, and they can smell some particular thing that you can't smell. So that's the olfactory hallucination. So it's mostly around the senses, and they are false. The person feels that these things are real because they can actually experience those sensations, but in reality, they don't exist. So the person is telling that I can hear somebody mentioning my name. I can hear somebody saying this, saying that, saying this. And then also we have what we call the delusions. These are irrational beliefs. Some strong, hard beliefs that they have that it's difficult for them to believe the opposite if you are telling them. Because to them, what they are saying is real and it is the final, is a fact. So with psychotic depression, the person is experiencing these psychotic features. The hallucinations and delusions are present, where that delusion of feeling worthless or guilty is there, in addition to the depressive symptoms. Although aware their thoughts are irrational, individuals may feel embarrassed and hide them. It can occur in major depression, depressive or bipolar disorder, and is hard to diagnose due to the overlapping symptoms. So, sometimes if care is not taken, somebody may be diagnosed as bipolar, which we'll be looking at next week. Maybe the person may be diagnosed as bipolar if they're experiencing this psychotic depression. But bipolar has its own cardinal features. But so what they are saying over here is that with psychotic depression, the person is depressed, and also there's a presence of psychosis in there. It is not that at one point they are shifting to a particular mood, as in the case of bipolar, but this one, it is persistent. The psychosis are persistent, and then the depressive moods are also persistent. So that is the psychotic depression over here. It's also previously known as schizoaffective. So that's schizoaffective. So there's schizophrenia and then the depression. So schizoaffective. But in the current reviews, it says psychotic depression. So symptoms of psychotic depression can include irritability or anger, social withdrawal, loss of interest, just like all the symptoms I mentioned, difficulty concentrating, changes in appetite, sleep disturbances, and then that feeling of worthlessness or guilt is there. But what is important is that there is a presence of psychosis in here. So situations like this, when we are talking about management, at all points, we will need medication in addition to this treatment because of the psychosis that is there.
Another one. What is B?
So let's look at some general symptoms of depression.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
I want to get something clear on that. The psychotic
Depression, yes, sir.
in a situation whereby the person is presenting one signs of it, can you go ahead to diagnose someone as that? Maybe he's seeing things on the head and those sort of things without any other ones. Can you go ahead to just diagnose?
But is depression present? Is a person depressed before having those hallucinations?
Yes.
And are the two persistent? Are the two happening concurrently? Are they all happening? Or one happens? How is it like?
Well, they don't go in together. Like
Okay.
it will, yeah, they alternate.
Okay, so you see, mostly talk about the psychotic depression. Sometimes, if there are hallucinations, some of these things are they are persistent false perceptions. Okay, so the person has this way of thinking, especially with the delusions. The person have this strong belief about some particular thing about maybe that is making them feel a particular way about themselves or about somebody. So it is that persistent. And then this hallucinations, either auditory, visual, tactile, olfactory, which one is present? Mostly they move together and they are persistent. Okay, so the person is depressed, is showing depressive symptoms, and in the midst of that depressive symptoms, they're also having psychosis. So that's why we talk about the psychotic depression.
Thank you
And
very
that's what
much,
we are
sir.
saying, that carefulness, like you're supposed to be very careful. If not, you may be mixing it with bipolar. Or you may be considering a major depression. But the distinguishing feature here is that in that depression, there's psychosis. The person may not necessarily be presenting aggression, as in the case of bipolar, but just that they're having those thoughts along with, and sometimes based on those thoughts, they feel the way they are feeling, that their depression is happening because of the presence of the psychosis. So I don't know if I've explained, or if you have some contribution, please, you
Thank
can.
you. Thank you. I appreciate a lot. Now I understood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we are looking at general symptoms of depression. And I think when we're looking at the various subtypes, and then the cardinal point that you're supposed to consider, we've mentioned most of them, so I'm going to run through a bit faster. Feeling of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, or hopelessness. And these feelings are mostly persistent. So the person with them is just, the person is just sad. You see tears moving down, and they feel so empty, they feel so worthless, as if nothing is working for them, nothing is moving on. Sometimes there can be this angry outburst. They just get angry all of a sudden, and you become uncontrollable. Angry outburst, irritability or frustration, even over small matters, things that ideally they shouldn't have been reacting the way they are reacting, but they may start reacting that way. Loss of interest or pleasure in most or all normal activities. So those partners, they may even lose interest for sex. So realize that the other partner is calling it, like, not that the other partner has wronged this one or they are having any issues, but the interest is just not there. So situations like this can have effect on marital relationships and other relationships as well. The person may lose interest in their hobbies or the sports that they love to do. They may lose interest in some of these things. Sleep disturbances, tiredness, and lack of energy. So even small tasks takes extra effort. Even sometimes the task is not even accomplished, but you're already tired ahead of starting it. Even looking at the task sitting there for it to start, you feel already exhausted. You feel so stressed out. So you do that, once you start doing it little, and then you are tired. Sometimes even procrastinations come in, because you end up postponing. By the time you realize you are stuck in time that it's like you must now be working under undue pressure. And reduce appetite and weight loss, or increase cravings for food and weight gain. Anxiety, agitation, or restlessness. Slow thinking. The person can't just think straight this time around. Like they are trying to make some plan, taking some thought, but the ideas are just not coming. Speaking or body movement becomes slow. Feeling of worthlessness or guilt. Fixating on past failures or self-blame. So this person, things that have happened in the past that didn't go well, that is what their mind is on continuously. Trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions, and remembering things becomes difficult. frequent or recurrent thought of death, as you mentioned, suicide thoughts or suicide attempts, or even suicide in itself. Suicidal ideations becoming. Unexplained physical problems such as back pain or headache. Sometimes even most of the complaints, even with the neck pain. And then back pain as well. Sometimes as a result of the person going through this low mood. Now, as you mentioned, children also experience
Hello,
depression.
sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, when they say this thing, suicidal thought or suicidal attempt, what are the difference? I didn't get that part.
Okay, so when we are talking about suicide, suicide is someone taking his or her own life. That is suicide. So talking about the thought is the person thinking of death, like not just death, but thinking of taking their own life. That is a thought. Thought of death is about thinking of death in general, not necessarily killing yourself. Either you feel like you die, something will happen to you, that you'll be dying. When it comes to suicide thoughts, the individual is thinking of taking their own life. That is, so it is just a thought, the idea that comes to mind. That because of things I'm going through, if I should die, that is better. Then when we talk of suicide attempt. So suicide attempt here is trying it out, the things you are thinking of, putting it into practice. So maybe a person thought of, let's say, taking a particular medicine and they go and try taking it. So that is attempt. So when attempt happens and the person didn't die, we say suicide attempt. And when the person dies, we say suicide. So,
Thank you.
and then suicide happens in kind of this linear equation, which is it starts from first the thought, the plan, then the attempt, and then completion. So, if you have any follow-up question, please you can ask. Please, is my explanation okay? Or you may want further explanation, or if you have any other question.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. It's to my understanding. I appreciate it a lot.
All right. Thank you. And even though we are not doing suicide in full, what I want to say is that if you know of anyone who start talking around issues of death, you should take particular interest in this person. Sometimes it is that at that time that they are talking, saying those things, they're having the suicidal thoughts. Sometimes they may say things like, I will travel far away to a long distance, nobody will see me. Some is, if I'm dead, then that's it. Me who are now asem na asem the asem ko and asem na asem. There was no one cook over.
The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Hello.
Or they may be doing some behaviors that can lead to death. Either they start drinking excessively. Some even start becoming overly nice by giving out their belongings. Or like, so you think they are just being nice. So they start sharing their things. When these things are happening, we should take particular interest. Or somebody will going around thanking people or apologizing to people that they haven't wronged. Thanking people that didn't do anything to them. We will go around, anybody say, oh, thank you, or I'm sorry for what happened. They are just going around apologizing for no reason. We should be interested in someone who is bringing up those behaviors. Yes, Norbert, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much for taking us to that. But that has reminded me of a nearby brother who is a mental challenge. Anytime, like as you are saying, he always say things like that nature. It's been long, but he has never gone to harm himself or in a way. I don't know what is it about.
Yes, it's good we've been able to take notice of the person making comments like that. So now that you know that these are signs that a person may be contemplating suicide, it will be good you encourage this individual to seek help or to see a therapist. And by you've mentioned that the person has an existing mental health issue. So other mental health issues can also be a source of suicide ideations. Okay. So if the person is having maybe some other mental health condition, it can be a factor. So it is good the person will seek complete help. So the person sees a mental health professional, they are assessed appropriately and given the appropriate treatment. So it is good you've been able to observe that this brother or sister is going through this thing. Help them reach a caregiver. And I think that would be the best thing you can do for this person.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this person I'm talking about, the family is not tired. I can say they are not tired of him. Why am I saying so? They spend a lot on him. And then when they send him, and then he's always fine. When he comes back, he's into alcohol. And then this substance, I can say, is polysubstance use that has always bring about his problem. And they are not tired of him. Every time they send him there, he comes back, he's fine, but he tried to take the thing that would trigger it to come again.
Mhm. It's unfortunate because sometimes it can be tiring taking care of someone in that situation, but that doesn't mean that we should give up on a person. So yes, as you are showing interest, one other way you can help if the family seems to be tired, you can also, if you know maybe an assembly member in the community, you can talk to the assembly member so that they provide help. They lead this person to a mental health service, or you can get to social welfare. So the social welfare department is also available for our reach, where we can get to them and then tell them about your observations about this person. So social welfare can also help to lead this person to treatment. And maybe if the person hears you, one thing we should know is that it's not everyone who has mental health issue that can't understand or cannot reason. So sometimes you may get closer to the person, talk to the person, and they'll accept to follow you to see a mental health professional. So you can, as an individual, try, talk to the assembly members, talk to social welfare department, and sometimes there may be a way forward from that place. But it's good if you've taken keen interest in this individual. I think maybe you can connect to me after the call so that we talk more about it and see how best
Yes,
we can reach
yes.
out to this brother.
I
Thank
think my battery is running down. Any moment from now, it can go off. I would like to
you. All
take your
right.
number from the page. If I can have it there, then I'll later.
Yes, once you're on the page, I'm on the page, so you can just pick my number from there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate a lot.
You are welcome, sir. Yes. So we are talking about depression in children. Common signs and symptoms of depression in children and teenagers are almost similar to those of adults, but there can be some slight differences. In younger children, symptoms of depression may include sadness, irritability, clinginess, worry, aches and pains, refusing to go to school, or being underweight. So if your child is finding it difficult to separate They are so clingy, they are always moody, they are always sad. We should take particular interest in this. It's possible this child may be going through some form of depression. In teens, symptoms may include sadness, irritability, feeling negative and worthless, anger, poor performance or poor attendance at school, feeling misunderstood, and extremely sensitive, using recreational drugs or alcohol, eating or sleeping too much, self-harm, loss of interest in normal activities, and avoidance of social interactions. So teenagers, children also experience depression. So we shouldn't just feel that for children, they can't experience depression. They also have mood. They have emotions. So our eyes we shouldn't lose focus of children when they are experiencing mood disorders. Generally, what can be some of the causes of depression? So we said biological differences. People with depression appear to have physical changes in their brains, like we've seen in the seasonal affective, some hormonal imbalances, neurotransmitter test misfiring, and all those stuff. So there can be some physical changes in the brain. The significance of these changes is still uncertain, but may eventually help pinpoint the cause of the person's mood. And I mentioned the brain chemistry. Neurotransmitters are naturally occurring brain chemicals that likely play a role in depression. Recent research indicates that changes in the function and effect of these neurotransmitters and how they interact with neurocircuits involved in maintaining mood stability may play a significant role in depression and its treatment. And they're talking about hormones. Changes in the body's balance of hormones may be involved in causing or triggering depression. Hormone changes can result with pregnancy, as we've seen earlier, and during the weeks or month after delivery, that's postpartum, and from thyroid problem, menopause, or a number of other conditions. And when we go further and we get to the premenstrual dysphoric, you realize that even these hormone issues can happen around the menstrual periods. Sometimes it can be inherited trait. So depression is more common in people whose blood relatives also have this condition. Researchers are trying to find genes that may be involved in causing depression. And then aside that, we also have the environmental or the social issues, relationship breakdowns, financial issues, these are not expectations not being met, among others. So it can be both biological, environmental, or both that may be causing this. And let's look at some other risk factors.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I would like to know which of the neurotransmitter, when it's high, it can lead to you having depression. You made mention of hormones, which has to do with our neurotransmitters. Which of them can cause that? Can equally cause same? Hello,
Yeah, hello. Yeah,
hello.
so I think as mentioned earlier, various hormones, various neurotransmitters can be a reason behind a depression. So let's take, for instance, it is based on what is the person is going through. So if you take, let's say, serotonin, for instance, neurotransmitter serotonin regulates our mood, our appetite, and sleep. So when serotonin levels drop, you realize that it will not be able to regulate the mood as it's supposed to be. So in situations of depression, it rather goes down, the serotonin levels reduces. So when there's low level of serotonin, for instance, it can bring about depression. If it is higher, then it will bring about anxiety-related issues. But when it is lower, it will rather be bringing depression. And if you take the neurotransmitter dopamine, for instance, which include our reward, it regulates our reward system, motivation, pleasure, and all those stuff. So if that neurotransmitter dopamine is also having an effect, definitely imbalances in it who can contribute to mood disorders as well. And then when we take the norepinephrine neurotransmitters too, the same way, almost all the neurotransmitters, GABA, glutamate, among the others, all these dopamine, neurotransmitters dysregulation can link to a mood dysregulation. So it is not just one, but based on how it is being regulated, that will be bringing about. So, but mainly serotonin, a decrease in serotonin and then dopamine levels can actually make an individual prone to depression more. I think that answers your question.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it a lot.
Okay. So we are talking about risk factors. Aside the causes, you also have these risk factors are things that could or can also contribute to somebody experiencing depression. And then we are saying that more women than men are diagnosed with depression. So being a woman, but men equally experience depression. Why research will be saying that more women experience depression than men? Partly can be because women will report their symptoms to or will seek treatment. So their figures are being recorded. And the man will want to fix things by themselves. And that makes the records not to be there. So you realize that in the books, you see more ladies attending or seeking treatment for their mood issues, and men will want to keep it and fix it by themselves. So that's why this is like that. Factors that seem to increase the risk of developing or triggering depression can include some personality traits, such as somebody with a low self-esteem, poor self-concept or confidence or low self-confidence, and being too dependent, self-critical or pessimistic. These personality issues can also make an individual prone to developing depressive symptoms. Traumatic or stressful events, such as physical or sexual abuse, even emotional or verbal abuses, all forms of abuse can lead to somebody becoming depressed. The death or loss of a loved one, troubled relationships or difficult relationships, financial problems, as mentioned earlier, can all be triggering factors. Then history of family history of depression or any other mental health condition, and the use of alcohol or history of suicide in the family history. All these things can be a triggering factor or risk factors that can put a person at risk of developing depression. Other symptoms could being a homosexual. Based on the social issues surrounding homosexuality, individuals who practice these things are at high level of experiencing depression because of the social issues around it. Then history of other mental health disorders such as anxiety disorders, eating disorders, or post-traumatic stress disorders. Abuse of alcohol or use of recreational drugs, that's hard drug, weed, and the rest. Serious chronic illness, including cancer, stroke, chronic pain, or heart diseases. So somebody who has been diagnosed with a chronic condition, this person definitely will be thinking and be feeling so worthless, helpless, and the person can fall into depression. Some medications, like some medications used for BP management and sleep management, some medications may also be contributing factors that may lead an individual to developing this because of how their mechanism of functioning in the system. Either it may go and then have something to do with your neurotransmitters, and that can be causing things like this. When depression is left untreated, it can lead to a whole lot of complications. So depression often gets worse if it's not treated, resulting in emotional, behavioral, and health problems that affect every area of your life. So for example, excess weight or obesity, which can lead to heart disease and diabetes. So if you are eating excessively, heart diseases and diabetes are there. Sometimes pain and physical illness as a result of that persistent low mood. Some people end up using alcohol or drug misuse. Depression can make an individual prone to anxiety, panic disorders, or even social phobias, and even stress. So in one of the screening tools, you realize that you have like the DAS, for instance, which measures stress, depression, stress, and anxiety, for instance. Sometimes if you should critically examine the pointers on it, you realize that one of these factors may be causing the other. So somebody who is depressed is likely to also experience some forms of anxiety. And that in the end of at the end may end up the person becoming so stressed up. So these three things sometimes move alongside. When somebody is depressed, it can bring about family conflict because it's a person who doesn't have the interest in communicating with anybody. Sometimes they are just quiet. They don't want to have anything to do with anybody. So somebody is asking him or her question and it becomes trouble. They easily get angry. So family conflict will be happening. Relationship difficulties will be happening. At their workplace, at their schools, there'll be issues all over. Social isolation, they may not want to go to social places or they just don't have the interest. Feeling suicidal. Self-mutilation, that is about doing things, self-harm, causing self-harm, doing things to harm themselves, such as cutting. And sometimes premature death from medical conditions. So when it comes to treatment can be based on medication and psychotherapy or psychotherapy, depending on the severity. So if the symptoms are severe to the extent that based on assessment, the person will need medication, there are medications available. So your therapist will try to find out the source of the depression. So when the source is known and there will be the need for medication, you'll be referred appropriately to the other psychiatrist or the mental health nurses, the psychiatric nurses, the psychiatrist, or even to the medical doctor, where you are giving medical treatment. And then in addition to the medical treatment, psychotherapy continues. In some instances, medication may not be necessary because maybe the issues are just based on things that based on the thought patterns and stuff that could be handled through therapy. Situations like, let's say, if you have a psychotic depression, definitely you have to do the combination of medicine and therapy. So it is not always that medication goes in. So I want to continue this with the psychotherapy because that is my line of care. So I want to talk about
Hello, sir.
three therapies. Yes, sir. Love it.
Yeah, thank you very much. When you talk of treatment or management in what do you call it, depression, I want to get this clear. In depression, is it treatable or manageable? Because the word treatment and management, that I'm not getting it clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And that's a fine question. So in depression, it can be treated, it can also be managed depending on what is causing it. Let's say if it is based on a particular way of thinking that is making a person to be depressed, and the therapist is able to identify that pattern of thought and help the person to correct it, and they no longer feel that way, they are not also on any medication, but they become fine. At that point, you can say that the person has been treated. In situations whereby this individual, we just have, maybe there are some underlying medical issues that are there that will become persistent. If, let's say, issues like seasonal affective disorder, for instance, which may be having to do with issues around hormones and neurotransmitters, those ones, because of those biological or underlying factors, they may become chronic. So those ones, you manage them. So when it comes to depression can be managed, and it can also be treated depending on what is causing the depression. So if you say treatment, some people are able to recover completely from their depression. If the person should, let's say, a loss of a loved one, and the person has been moody for, I mean, you know that more than 2 weeks, you qualify to be diagnosed as depressed. But when the person started seeing a therapist, with time, they're able to overcome that mood, and they're able to move forward. They no longer feel that way. You can, that point, you can say the person is treated. So it is both. It is both treatable and then manageable. So that is what I'll say about that. But if you have any other maybe explanation to it, you can bring it. I hope that is clear.
Thank you, sir. I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. Yes, so I was talking about psychotherapy, and one therapy that sometimes can help an individual, but all these must be based on assessment. It is assessment that will inform what form of therapy to give to the individual. We have assessment tools that if you see a therapist, you are taking through various assessment, and then based on the scores and then the intake that you've given, the clinical judgment, all those things will inform what line of therapy or treatment you need. So after the assessment, one of the therapies that can be introduced is what we call the acceptance and commitment therapy, which I want to introduce to us. So the acceptance and commitment therapy is a mindfulness-based kind of therapy, which encourages the individual to accept their thoughts and feelings rather than fighting against them, while also committing to actions that align with their values. So in this therapy, your therapist will guide you and help you to, one, accept the things you are thinking about or how you feel. And instead of trying to be fighting those thoughts and it will be disturbing you, you rather get them kind of, no longer, you try to distance yourself. Yes, I think that way, to distance yourself from those thoughts. So you accept it, accept the thought and feelings rather than fighting them. And then you get committed to actions that will align with your values. The way you are thinking, is it in line with your value? And the focus here is that is to increase psychological flexibility and acceptance of difficult emotions. So that the person maybe based on the thoughts, there are some thoughts that do come. Maybe let's say they feel like I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough. These are thoughts that have been coming to the person, into the person's mind. So over here, the individual tend to accept this thought that it's just a thought. It is just a thought that is coming to mind, but that if the person's value is that no, they feel they are important and all those stuff, knowing that those are just thoughts and not them will help them to accept the emotion and then distance from it. So it promotes engagement in value-driven behaviors and enhances mindfulness and present moment awareness. So in acceptance and commitment therapies, the cardinal areas is one to be present, where the individual is made to focus or be grounded, that's focused on the current situations, whatever is happening around them. They are grounded as such. Then also their values, as we mentioned, their values. Discover what is truly important to them. What are their personal values? You explore those things. They have what they call a commitment. So the person is able to take actions to pursue the important things in their life. Then it moves to the self as a context, where pain is seen to be small part of who they are, and it seems to be normal. Then have the diffusion, where observe your thoughts without being ruled by them. And then the final aspect is the acceptance. So I want to share a practical, I want to exit this very slide and take us to a different page to go through some small exercise and we'll come back.
Guided body scan. This is one of my favorite techniques for bringing a sense of harmony between your mind and body, and also bringing you further into the present moment. Go ahead and find your favorite position in order for
Yes, so I wanted us to look at how cognitive fusion is done, where one is helped to distance themselves from what they are thinking, the thought that is going through their mind that is making them feel depressed. This is a short clip that will take you through or letting go of those thoughts. So I just want us to pay attention to it. It's just 3 minutes and then we'll get back.
commitment therapy. An important concept in acceptance and commitment therapy is the idea of cognitive fusion and diffusion. Cognitive fusion describes those times when we're so tightly stuck to our thoughts that we become fused with them. We can't separate ourselves from our thoughts, and so our thoughts become our reality. And when we're in a state of cognitive fusion, we can feel removed from the world outside our thoughts and from what we're doing and from the people around us. And it can be hard to pay attention to anything outside our head. The opposite of cognitive fusion is cognitive diffusion. Cognitive diffusion involves taking a step back from what's going on inside our minds, detaching ourselves from our thoughts. In this state of diffusion, we can observe our thoughts without getting caught up in or lost in them. And we can just allow them in and accept them and let them be and let go of them if we want. One way we can practice cognitive diffusion is to label your thoughts. Anytime you notice that you're starting to become fused with your thoughts, you can simply take a step back from your thoughts by labeling them as thinking or daydreaming or worrying or ruminating or planning. Just labeling whatever type of thought you're having with a 1 or 2 word description. And doing this helps you take a step back from the thought and focus less on the content of your thought and more on just the fact that you're thinking or worrying or daydreaming or whatever the nature of your thought is. And this makes it less likely that you'll get sucked in by those thoughts or carried away by them or become fused with them. Or you can say to yourself, I'm just thinking, just worrying, and putting the qualifier just in front of the thought helps take away some of the power of that thought and makes it easier to let go. Or you can label the content of your thought as being just a thought. So if you're thinking, I can't do anything right, reframe this as, I'm just having the thought, I can't do anything right. Or if you're thinking this is going to be terrible, you can reframe that as, I'm just having the thought that this is going to be terrible. Instead of, nothing ever goes my way, I'm just having the thought that nothing ever goes my way. And by prefacing our thoughts with the disclaimer that this is just a thought, we reinforce the idea that our thoughts are not facts. And every time we remind ourselves of this, we take away some of the power that our thoughts have over us. And if you're still having trouble letting go of your thoughts, you can imagine yourself writing down each thought on a balloon and then releasing that balloon up into the air and just allowing that thought to float from your mind as the balloon floats away. Now, sometimes instead of just letting go of our thoughts, it can be helpful to look at the content of our thoughts and just get a sense of how accurate or how biased that thought may be, and see if there may be a different way of looking at things and thinking about them that's more helpful to you, which is something we'll explore in the next video about reframing your thoughts and cognitive restructuring. And if you'd like to check out my online mindfulness-based stress reduction and cognitive therapy program, where these videos come from for free, you'll find the link in the description. And please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.
All right, thank you. So I would like to ask, so from this short video, what have you learned? Can you share what you've learned with us when it comes to that? And that is an acceptance and commitment therapy. So when you see a therapist, you'll be taking through sessions like that. So what have you learned that you can share with us? Yeah, hello. Okay, let's move on. So that is so in acceptance and commitment therapy, the focus is trying to let go of these thoughts that are making you feel depressed instead of fighting them. So you could see some examples that were made and just putting, this is just a thought. It doesn't really define who I am or what I am going through, but it's just a thought. So in this therapy, that's diffusion. So diffusing the thoughts can also help an individual to manage the way they are thinking that is making them feel depressed. So that is one therapy that can help. Then another therapy is the interpersonal therapy. So interpersonal therapy focuses on improving interpersonal relationships and social functioning as a way to alleviate depressive symptoms. It helps to emphasize the significance of personal relationships and how they impact the individual's mental health. So over here, the goal is to identify the interpersonal issues contributing to the depression. Maybe there are some issues, interpersonal issues, that is making the person feel the way they are feeling or thinking the way they are thinking. So you also help them to improve communication skills and relationship dynamics and enhance social support networks. So these are some steps that the individual is even taking through. First, trying to help them identify the troubled thoughts or whatever is making them feel that way. Then you help them to build new skills. How you'll be able to challenge the practical things that maybe their way of communicating, how to express themselves, assertiveness, and all those stuff. They learn those skills and then practice the skills and encourage them to continue doing some of those things. So these therapies are all available that can help an individual who is going through depression. And then one common therapy is the CBT, that is cognitive behavior therapy, also helps to restructure the individual's way of thinking that is making them depressed. So maybe the person may be going through any of these cognitive distortions, which I think in our last meeting, we discussed some of them. All or nothing thinking is what the person is thinking in absolute terms. Like, if it is not this, it is not that. There are no in between. The person doesn't make room for any alternative. So the person says that I will fail, and that ends it. The person says I am a failure, or I am not important, I'm a bad person, and that is the nothing changes it. Catastrophizing, trying to see the worst part of every situation. Anything that is happening, they are seeing the worst form of it happening. So always the person is always thinking of the negative, the worst, the bad part that will be happening, and that is stressing the individual. Emotional reasoning, where based on how they feel, they tend to reason or interpret situations based on their feeling. Fortune telling, always just as catastrophizing, always seeing doom at the end of the tunnel. We have the overgeneralization, where something very minute that sometimes even insignificant is blown out of proportion and made to be looking like something so big that cannot be taken lightly. Sometimes self-blame or blaming others for almost everything. Disqualifying positives, that is where the individual doesn't see anything positive about their lives. They don't see any achievement in their life. All they see is negative, negative, negative. Filtering out the positives when there are a lot, maybe you're having a conversation and a lot of things have been said. Just one negative thing that was said is what the person picks up and dwells on it. So they filter the information and they are always filtering just to get that negative thing and pick, and that is what to be troubling them. And mind reading, trying to think for other people. So as the person is thinking for other people, it troubles them. And the should statement, this should be this must be this. Always things must be in a particular order for them, that perfectionist tendencies. When all these things are there, sometimes they can be the source of the person's depression. So a cognitive behavior therapy is structured in such a way that it helps the person to change these negative thought patterns and behaviors so that they're able to replace them with appropriate ways of thinking so that they are okay. talking about prevention, there are no sure way to prevent depression. However, some of these strategies can help. Take steps to control stress, to increase your resilience and boost your self-esteem. Reach out to family and friends, especially in times of crisis, to help you wither raw spells. Get treatment at the earliest sign of a problem to help prevent depression from worsening. And then consider getting long-term maintenance treatment to help prevent a relapse symptoms. So, ladies and gentlemen, may the good Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord let his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord uncover his face to you and bring you peace. Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Thank you so much for your attention. My name is Jones Kwesi Tagbo, and I have been your facilitator. Yes, so please, we are done. If you have any questions or any contribution, you can ask, and then we conclude today's presentation. Yes, Sally.
Yes, Sir Jones, thank you very much for the presentation. Can you please explain the values-based about the ACT? How the values-based of the ACT will work with the clients?
Okay, so the question here is, what are your values? What is most important to you? What are the things that you cherish in your life? So, and then now comparing it to the way the person is thinking, do those things commensurate with the values that you have? Are those things really important to you? If they are really not things that are important to you, then why are you keeping them from troubling you? If they are important to you, and then there's a way of doing something about it, then we look for the solutions to fixing it rather than it being on your mind and disturbing you always. So you try to help the person to identify their values, their core values, and then as the individual explore them, comparing it to the way they think. Comparing to the way they think, and then now trying to shape it. So let's just do a small practical example or demonstration right now to see how this aspect works. So I don't know if maybe you are okay to share maybe 3 values of yourself, or maybe write them down. Write some 3 values down. Now, after identifying these values, think about a goal that reflects those values. What are the goals? Why are those important? Why are those values important to you? So you think about a goal that reflects your value. Another question is, what might be some small steps that you can take towards achieving these values? And comparing to, but before being compared, you help the individual to first think of or ask what exactly is what negative thought are they going through at that moment. So maybe if the negative thought is, I am worthless. Now, the values of the individual, they are telling you that they are somebody who they always want to be truthful. They want to be honest. They want to, let's say, be religious, or whichever. That is their values. And they are telling you that they are worthless. Why are you thinking that way? Is it just a thought, or it is something that you think is true about yourself? So basically, with the value aspect of the acceptance and commitment therapy, the basic thing here is that first, you help the individual to identify the negative thoughts that is weighing them down. They subject it to their values and see if that thought is important to them or not. If it's an important thing, then in the person's own capacity, they try to work out in order or put in goals, measures to avoid that way of thinking. Sometimes because of their value, that's why that way of thinking is affecting them. So if you help them to align it properly, to accept that this is just a thought and not necessarily something that they are supposed to focus on, there you'll be helping. But it's a whole therapy, which maybe you have to get a time to take the individual through. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, is there any other question? Okay, so in the chat box, Bright Nee says, please, what is the difference between hallucinations and guilt? And guilt, is it God calling you? Bright, I guess you want to say God calling you to do his work. Is that hallucination? I just want to be sure if the GID is a mistake. You wanted to write God. What's the difference between hallucinations and God calling you to do his work? Well, I think with this, we have to subject it critically, because I can't really say that God calling you presuming that God is calling you to do his work is hallucination. We can only ascertain that upon assessment. So the difference here is that when you talk of hallucinations, these are sensual, negative sensual, or false sensual perceptions. So in terms of God is calling you to do his work, it will be difficult for me to say that this is hallucination or not. But if you should listen to the individual who is saying this, there are other questions you have to ask for you to be able to establish that this is a religious activity. Because we can't actually take away religion, you can't actually take away culture, because based on the person's belief, their cultural background, this may not necessarily be, and we have cultural explanations of some of these things. So the difference is that one may not be a cultural issue and the other one is a mental health condition, which is a false perception. So with this one, there's actually God is not calling the person. Maybe the voice they are hearing may be as a result of hallucination, but I can't tell from where I sit. I can't really tell that if God is calling somebody, it is hallucination or not. So your question, maybe you have some theologians here, they can help to tell us if we are able to distinguish between God's voice from hallucinations. Yes, Olivia, the session is recorded and it will be shared later. Okay, so Samsung user is asking for the slides and audio. So for the recording, the link will be shared afterwards with the slide. When we are done with the mood disorder series, the slide will be shared at the end of the mood disorder series. This is just the first part of it. So we have 3 other parts to do. So when we are done with all, then we release the slide. Thank you very much. Those are the messages in the chat box. All right, currently there are no new questions and there are no hands up. I don't know if is there any other question or contribution from anyone? Okay, so if there is none, I want to thank you all for your time. To all our new members who joined, thank you for joining. And just be reminded that this is a Ghana Growth project under the courtesy of Springboard Roadshow with support from MasterCard Foundation and the Ghana Psychological Association. So we do this every Sunday at 6 p.m. And God willing, next week we'll continue with bipolar disorders. So in the absence of any further question or contributions, I want to thank you all for your time and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, jeez.